Well, hey, everybody, it's the middle of the week, Wednesday. I hope your week is going well. Thank you for being with us this morning. We are in Genesis 43, so go ahead and open your Bible there, Genesis chapter 43. And while you're doing that, let me just remind you, we're in the middle of the story of Joseph, and this coming Sunday, my sermon is a summary of the life of Joseph and talks about dealing with the ups and downs of life, because as you know, Joseph had a lot of ups and downs, and handled it really well. So we're going to learn some lessons from Joseph about not just surviving, but actually thriving and becoming the person Jesus is calling us to be as we live through the ups and downs of life. So that's this Sunday. I hope you'll join us on campus at 9 o'clock or 10:30 and online starting at 7 o'clock. And please invite some people to watch. This is a message that's very practical and I think could help a lot of people. So go ahead and reach out to your contacts, all of your friends on Facebook, etc., and invite them to worship with us this Sunday. All right. In chapter 43, what God used to capture my heart in this chapter was Judah, one of Jacob's sons, one of Joseph's brothers. And Judah, in this chapter, really steps up to the plate. He steps up to help his dad. He steps up to help his brothers. He steps up to help his extended family. I mean, he steps up and mans up in a really good way in this chapter, even if it meant he had to make some sacrifices, even if it was going to cost him. You remember Judah and his other brothers had traveled to Egypt to get food because of the famine. Joseph putting them to the test, accusing them of being spies, and to prove they weren't spies, he kept Simeon in prison, let them go home, and said, "Don't come back unless you bring your younger brother," which we know is Benjamin. And if they come back and everything's above board, then he'll know. He's testing them. He's testing them. All right. So here's where the story takes an interesting turn. They get back to Canaan, back to Jacob and the extended family with food. They do not turn around immediately and go back to Egypt with Benjamin so they can get Simeon, their brother, out of prison. Why? Because Jacob, the dad, wouldn't let them. At the end of chapter 42, they explain everything to Jacob, their dad, what Joseph had said. Now, they didn't know it was Joseph. To them, it's just the number 2 man in charge of everything down in Egypt. And Joseph has already lost not Joe, but Jacob in his mind and heart's already lost Joseph. He thinks Joseph is dead, and now his son Simeon's in prison, and the last thing he wants is to send his boys down there, especially Benjamin, who's his youngest child, and Joseph's full brother, because they have the same mother, Rachel, the only 2 boys Rachel had. And remember, Rachel was the one that Jacob loved most anyway, and he's not about to risk anything happening to Benjamin. So, no, Jacob says no, not going back. Well, look at chapter 43, verses 1 and 2. Chapter 43, verses 1 and 2. It says, the famine was severe in the land. So they're in the middle of this famine. And it came about in verse 2. Okay, verse 2. It came about when they had finished eating the grain which they had brought from Egypt. Okay, so they stayed there however long that took to eat up all the food they had brought back from Egypt the first time. Okay, so they didn't leave immediately. They stayed there and they're eating all of that. And when the food had run out, the father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little food." Well, Judah speaks up and says, "Hey, don't you remember what we told you? What that king down there in Egypt said we had to do? And we better not show back up if we don't bring our younger brother." And by the way, if you want to know how much time had passed from when they got back with the food until now they're out of food again, and Jacob is wanting them to go back to Egypt and get some more food, look over at verse 10 of chapter 43, verse 10. Judah is talking to his dad, arguing with his dad. We've got to go. We've got to take Benjamin. We've got to do this the right way, or it's not going to work. In verse 10, Judah said to his father, "For if we had not delayed," see, like you made us delay, you wouldn't let us go back. If we had not delayed, surely by now we could have returned twice. Judah's saying, "Dad, we've been here long enough since we got back that first time with the food that we could have made 2 more trips to Egypt and back to get food. But you wouldn't let us." So a pretty lengthy period of time passed. Meanwhile, Simeon's in prison in Egypt. Wow. I mean, just wow. But Judah makes it very clear to his dad that we can't go without Benjamin. He told us, don't you dare do that. You know, the king down there. And Jacob was hesitant, but he finally relents and lets them go back and take Benjamin. But now here's what I want you to see about Judah, because who's stepping up so far and saying, Dad, yes, we need to go get food, we know that, but we need to do it the right way or it's going to get even worse. We can't go down with that. We got to do it the right way, Dad. And who was the one pointing out, Dad, we would have already handled all of this if you had let us, but you made us wait. And we could have been there and back twice. Judah's been the mature one here. But look in chapter 43 again at verses 8 and 9. Chapter 43, verses 8 and 9. Judah said to his father Israel, remember God changed Jacob's name to Israel. And that's whom the nation of Israel is named after. Judah is talking to his dad. Send the lad, send Benjamin with me. We will arise and go to Egypt, that we may live and not die. No, if we don't get some food in this famine, we're all going to die. We, as well as you and our little ones, we're all going to die if we don't get some food, Dad. Verse 9. I myself, Judah says, I myself will be surety for him, for Benjamin. You may hold me responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame before you forever. Now, you'll read about it in the next chapter tomorrow. But when they get to Egypt with Benjamin, Joseph puts them through some more tests. And he threatens to lock Benjamin up in prison and He threatens to make Benjamin his personal slave. Wow. And when that happens, and you'll see it tomorrow, Judah, who said to his dad, I will be the surety for Benjamin. In the chapter tomorrow, chapter 44, Judah steps up and says to Joseph, who's the ruler, and he doesn't know it's his brother, he just thinks it's the number 2 guy in the government in Egypt, says, let me take his place. I'll be your slave for the rest of my life. Let my little brother go home to his dad. So my point is, in these 2 chapters in this story, Judah stepped up for the sake of his family, even if it meant he had to suffer. Here's where I'm going with this. This is what God was saying to me. There are moments in every family, your immediate family, your extended family, where somebody in that family has to step up to the plate if the family is going to make it. There will be times of conflict, times when there are differing opinions, differing goals and priorities, on and on. There are going to be moments in every family, whether it's the immediate family or every extended family, where somebody has to step up and do what is best for the family as a whole, even if it means they have to give up a little bit, they have to suffer a little bit. Because if everybody in the family is always looking out for themselves, the family will disintegrate. That's true in the immediate family, that's true in your extended family. And by the way, guys, gals, that's true in marriage. There are moments when a husband has to step up to the plate, moments when a wife has to step up to the plate and do what is best for the marriage, even if it's not exactly how they would like it. If you can't be the kind of person that ever steps up to the plate for your family, for your immediate family, siblings, or beyond that, grandkids, cousins, the only way to have long-term relationships is from time to time, people have to step up and say, I'm going to do what's best for our whole family, and not just be selfish and thinking about themselves. Do you know what that's called? Love. Love. The greatest example of that is Jesus stepping up and dying on the cross because he loved us. And it wasn't for his sake. Okay? He sacrificed not for his sake, but for ours. And if you want long-term relationships, there may be a time when you need to step up. If everybody keeps waiting for everybody to step up and nobody steps up, then the family disintegrates. And one of the tragedies in America today is not just the weakening and the death of a lot of immediate families, but the absolute weakening and death of a lot of extended families. I think a lot of us would be well served to work a little harder at maintaining relationships with cousins and aunts and uncles and relatives. Even if you have to be the one that takes the initiative and steps up to the plate, even if sometimes it means you step up to the plate more than anybody else. But, hey, that's what love does. Hope this maybe encourages, challenges you, helps you, and God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.